Hello and welcome back to Jonathan Investigates Women's Football, a show where we discuss things that may not necessarily make the mainstream media, but things that I find equally as important and equally as interesting. This one I'm quite excited about because I actually know the guest. I actually know the person who I'm speaking to today. His name is Richard Embley. I know Richard through Stourbridge Football Club. However, that's not the topic of today's conversation. It's Cheshire. So this one excites me because I don't know much about the Cheshire area, and not many people talk about it. And I think it should be spoken about because I remember at the War Memorial Ground, Stourbridge Football Club, Richard spoke to me for a good half an hour, and I just couldn't get away because one, he was so passionate, but two, I didn't want to back away because he was just going through things that I just never heard of before. He was teaching me loads of different things. So it was only right that now I've got this platform, I reached out to him, and he gets to speak to me about Nantwich, about Crewe, about Macclesfield, about the whole area. So for this one, I just cannot wait. So just to put things in a little bit of perspective, and Richard will go through this in a bit more detail shortly. Richard is associated with Nantwich. He has got a special role there. I'm not 100% sure what that is just yet, so I will ask him throughout the show. But Nantwich are doing fantastic in that league. I believe if they win all their games in hand, they'll get promoted as well. Loads of things to do with the community and also about building players. This is what I want to kind of get into a little bit as well. You know, that there's players that's come out of that Cheshire area and gone on to the likes of Stoke or across the Black Country or further up north. There's lots of stuff that I want to get into here. Also about the different models, the way that the women's sections are set up, whether it be fan owned or not. So loads of different things, and I just can't wait. So hope you enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to the show, Richard. Is it Richard or shall I call you Rich?
Richard, yeah.
Richard's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining
Richard,
me today, Richard.
Richard, Dickie, Ricardo, anything, any derivative of that. So yeah, Richard is
Okay.
fine. Yeah,
Well, I'm safe with Richard, so I think
yeah,
I'll stick with that one. But thank you very much for joining me. This show is a long time coming. I remember you telling me back at the Stourbridge Football Club where I first met you about Nantwich, and I had no idea at the time how involved you were in the Cheshire area. So when you did speak to me about that, it really pricked my ears. So I didn't know exactly how I was going to do it, whether or not I was going to travel up there or whether we just do it remotely. However, maybe that's something we can do throughout the summer. I've got no problem travelling up to that area. But no, thank you very much for coming on. I do appreciate it. How's your day been, Richard?
yeah. I've just had a busy work day with work calls and yeah. So yeah, just I work in the during my day. I work in the insurance industry. So once a week I go into the Gherkin in the city and pretend to be a high-powered insurance executive, and then most of my spare time is spent with football, whether that's supporting Birmingham City, supporting my daughter, or running women's football at Nantwich Town. Yeah, so yeah, a busy life, but yeah, I'd like to get to a point eventually where I can retire from the world of insurance and focus 100% on football. So that would be lovely at some point. So yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't think I'm anywhere near getting rid of retail yet to do this kind of thing full time. But I think when you enjoy something and it's not a chore, I think it's fantastic that we can get up in the morning and get excited about the
Yeah.
football side of things. It doesn't pay the bills, or especially not my bills, but it certainly excites me throughout the day knowing that I can come home after work and speak to someone about women's football. So yeah, no, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. I know that you're busy. I can see the title underneath your name there, head of female football. I'm glad that you mentioned that. So do you just want to kind of explain what that role actually means?
Yeah, it's a volunteer role, John. I've been associated with the club for nearly 20 years. So my son and daughter started playing for Nantwich. My daughter started playing when she was 5, and my son started playing when he was 6. So I ran my son's team at the football club for 7 years. So my daughter Rosie, well, she played at the club as well, but I never coached Rosie. Rosie was in a junior boys team at the football club, and if you noticed last week, the Curry brothers they they made their they were playing together for the first time for England. Rosie played in the same boys team as the Curry brothers at football.
Okay.
So I never had to worry about Rosie in terms of coaching. But my son, I ran his team for 7 years, so I went on a lovely journey with him, and had a little bit of time away from the club. Did some coaching at Crew Alex in terms of their girls and female setup. So I was assistant manager to their development squad. Done some of my coaching badges as well. But about 6 years ago, the club asked me to come back to really kind of help launch female football. Club had a couple of goes at really trying to set up a female section, and hadn't quite got it right, and just asked me to come in. So came in, didn't really just jump in. We had a year of kind of test and learn, really, what works and what doesn't work, and then we created a clear strategy that we took to the board. And I say we, myself and the club's football development officer is a guy called Lyndon Wayne, who's really overseen the growth in all of our community and football elements. And we worked together, created a plan for the board. And so yeah, we started, we really started with like the young players. So the FA have an initiative called Wildcats, and we were part of we were the pioneers in Cheshire of the Wildcats program. So and the first night we turned up, and it was 6 o'clock start, and no one turned up, and we looked at each other and oh my god. It's really interesting because in the first group of 10 players we had 3 twins. And we realised that it was about friendships.
Yeah.
In female football, it was about actually connections and friendships, and so we built on that. And lo and behold, 5.5 years later, we now have 250 female footballers at the football club. So it's been a wonderful journey and a wonderful story. We always had female footballers and girls footballers at the club, but we have a community session every Saturday morning where we welcome all comers. And we'd always get the odd 1 or 2 girl footballers, but tended to fall into 2 categories, really. One that came for a couple of weeks and then decided not to stay because there was no girls football teams. Or they were really brilliant, like Rosie, and that were good enough to get into a boys team. So we've always had this smattering of good footballers, female footballers around the club, but they always had to be in of a level to get into a boys team, really. And Rosie played at the club from the age of 5 all the way up to 14 in very good boys teams as well. So I always felt that there was just something that we were missing from an environment perspective in terms of just encouraging more girls to play football. And what we realised really was it was girls only. Yeah. So it was, how do you create? So we just basically cleared every Friday night and said every Friday night between 6 and 7 is just for girls, and it grew and grew and grew as a result of that now. And so we now have the youngest teams that we have, or groups that we have, we call them little lionesses. So they're age 3, John, and we have like 20 little lionesses, 3 to 5 years of age playing football, and they are going to be, in 15 years' time, they're going to be the most amazing footballers because they're learning to play football before they can even walk properly and talk. Yeah. So we're really getting to them at a much earlier stage, which happens in the boys and men's game, but in the girls' game, it doesn't happen so often. And then we have teams. We have our Wildcats program, which is recreational from age of 5 to 12. And then we have teams at under 8s, 9s, 10s, 11s, 12s. 13, 2 at under 14, 15, 2 at under 16s, under 18s, a development squad, a first team development squad, and a women's first team, plus our women's recreational football. So on a Tuesday night, all ages, all abilities can turn up and play football at our football club. So and it's really lovely because we have quite a lot of mums whose sons or daughters play football, and they come to our recreational sessions. And we actually have one of our coaches, or our coaching team, they're under 10s coaching team. They'd never played football themselves before. They came over the fence, started coaching, but they've learned to play football through our recreational sessions themselves. said never played football before. Two moms that are absolutely amazing. But so we very much foster this kind of football for all in the community. So if you want to come and play football, it doesn't matter your ability. You can come and do walking football if you want to. You can join our recreational section. But if you're good enough and you want to commit to a team, we'll put you into a team as well. So yeah, it's been a remarkable rise, really. So.
Well, let's touch on that because I do want to talk about other teams in the area a bit later. I do want to get a bit into Nantwich a lot more as well. But you mentioned your daughter Rosie. She's obviously played for Crewe, Stoke, and other teams as well. What did you kind of learn from being a father that you could bring into actually kind of running a female section?
I think what I learned that even the big professional clubs get it wrong, John.
Mhm.
So really, it was so important, I think, for us when we sat down. We said, what kind of environment do we want to have for our
Was that your
female
number one thing?
footballers? Yeah,
Was that your number one priority, the environment?
environment. Yeah, so just simple things like having access to toilet facilities.
Hmm.
Okay, and making sure there was a key available when they turn up to training at 6 o'clock on a Friday night to actually use the toilet. I mean, it sounds really basic though, doesn't it? But if you're a boy, let's be honest, we've all done it. We've played a game of football and we've gone and used the toilet we've basically gone in the trees, haven't we? Do you know what I mean? And we've gone back on the pitch, yeah? So for girls, we just needed to make sure that there were certain things from a minimum standard perspective. We've really encouraged female coaches at the club. We've got over 20 female coaches at the football club as well. So, and Rosie was one of those coaches as well, and helped us on that journey for many years. And so we've really tried to encourage. Most of our teams have either a female lead or a female assistant, and we think that's really important, John, to not just encourage female footballers, but to encourage female coaches as well, and that helps that connection with the environment and the facilities and the infrastructure that you've got. The biggest thing, John, I would say, was that we encouraged girls of all ability or girls that had even never played football to come and join us. Yeah, and when you get to 150, 200 people all starting at the same level with a base level of I've never played football before,
Yes.
you all develop, and so when you then develop teams, they all develop at the same rate, if that makes sense. So so that was really, no one feels inadequate, no one
Yeah.
feels that they're not good enough. They all feel that and Rosie was a big advocate of that, really, which was, let's just make sure that whoever wants to come and play for a team, they can be in a team. Yeah. And that's what we've tried to do, John. We've tried to accommodate, and in some age groups we've now got two teams, so we'll have maybe a more I wouldn't say talented, but a more advanced group, and a more recreational group team in our club. So fundamentally, though, I think one of the biggest things is coaching, John. So I'm a firm believer that at a very young age, you've got to make sure that the basic technique is right. Yes, and that's so we preach possession based football. We preach good technique. We preach performance and improvement over results. Yeah, we don't look at our league tables, John, in the younger age groups. We just don't.
Yeah.
I just don't care. I just don't care. The most important thing is, have they improved? Have the goals that you set them for the week been achieved? I don't ask my younger coaches, my coaches of my young teams, what the score was. I say, how did you get on? Yeah,
Yeah.
how did it go? And because we've taken the pressure off in those age groups, then eventually what happens is the girls themselves become competitive at the right age. Yeah, so it's a natural process rather than forcing. Oh, we're bottom of the league. I've got a team which is my under 12s that spent 2 years at the bottom of the league and not winning a game, but they've got the most amazing coach who's really invested in himself in terms of his coaching badges, and now this year they're top of the league. So and he's just really developed his whole group together collectively. So I think it's about your ethos and your values as well, John, that come through, and obviously. So I've learned a lot from professional football clubs. I have, I've learned about the standards of coaching and what's really important from a coaching perspective. I've learned about the standard of facilities is really important. I would also say that how you treat people is maybe not has not always been on the high priority of some of the bigger clubs, really. So and we always make sure that we try and treat people correctly, really, and we try and get people in their right age groups. We don't really try and push people to play a year up unnecessarily. It's about friendships first, John, for us. And we're at that. We are the entry point into football in the local community. If you're playing for Nantwich, then your stepping stone might be a professional club. Rosie started at Nantwich, but she then went to Crewe. In there, it wasn't an original centre of excellence until the FA closed it down, and then she had to go to Stoke. And then eventually she wanted to develop herself a bit further, and then went to Everton, and then had 3 good years at Everton. So, and each time it felt like a progression for her and a step up, and a considered step up.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about that. I was there a captain of a team that's in the top 48 teams in the country. Do you find that's like an inspiration for the players who are currently at Nantwich or in the Cheshire area who's developing the game? They can look at Rosie and other players in the Cheshire area, and they can think, well, look where Rosie is. If we follow the same route that she goes, they can also be at that level.
It would be, John, if she allowed me to talk about it. Rosie doesn't have a social media presence. She doesn't have a profile. She's very, if people ask me about it, I'll tell them. But a lot of our girls don't actually know. I was speaking to one of my parents yesterday who was talking about his daughter potentially going to America. And I said, my daughter went to America. Oh, do you have a daughter that plays football, do you? Yeah, I do. And I think because Stourbridge and Rosie lives in the Midlands and we're up in Cheshire a little bit, there's a bit of distance there, so the news doesn't necessarily travel.
I see.
So, but she's coached teams here at the club, and the teams that she's coached will know, and some of them have been to watch Rosie as well. The local games against Stoke and things like that. So there is an awareness, and she has.
Good.
But the way Rosie operates, really, I would say she wants to be under the radar, not in the spotlight, does she? So, and that's a choice. That's her choice. Yeah, that's
Let's talk more about Nantwich's season so far, then, because I was looking on the league tables just last night, and it looks like they're doing really well. You spoke to me about an application to go from Tier 7 to Tier 6, and I want to ask you why in a second, because it looks like that they're going to potentially, touch wood, get promoted anyway with the amount of games in hand that they've got. Is that application for a different reason, or is it just...
So the FA are restructuring the leagues anyway. So above us, we have 2 Northwest regional leagues. That's moving to 3 Northwest regional leagues. So the application process, really, we actually applied last year. And we finished 3rd in the league last year. So the team that got promoted out of our league was Macclesfield FC, which is the club that's owned by Robbie Savage and his business partner, and so very well funded club, and so they got up last year. So we will apply for even if you finish top, you've still got to apply, John. So so you've still got to meet certain criteria to satisfy promotion. So you've got to, it's about your administration, it's about your facilities, and also your playing record. And for us this year, we want to, our objective is to finish top in our first team environment, but it won't be at all costs. Do you know what I mean? We're not. In our league, we've got teams that are paying players significantly more than they're getting in Tier 3, John.
We can jump onto that if you want. We can come back to that a bit later, because I know the teams that you're on about. So what we'll do is we'll say that for a little bit later, because that's a great, interesting topic and debate, isn't it? But we'll stick with Nantwich so far. But it is definitely one to come on to. And FA Cup one as well, Richard. The FA Cup one has been phenomenal, wasn't it? Yeah, talk to us a bit about that.
So we got to the first round proper in the end, which was an amazing journey. So we beat Fleetwood, we beat Runcorn, and we beat Solihull Moors. So
Yeah,
yeah, sorry, a team from Runcorn. Sorry, not Runcorn. Um,
yeah,
yeah, so we did really well. Prize money was huge for us, John.
yeah.
You know, I think if you look at the data, reaching the first round proper, the cumulative amount is over 10 grand. So that, you know, that's significant money in the coffers for a club like ours, really. Particularly as our
Mhm.
men's got knocked out the first qualifying round as well. I'd like to get that in, John, as well. Um, so yeah, the playing record for the FA Cup this year is really positive, and we're getting decent crowds as well, John. You know, we had a crowd of over 250 people for that game.
Yeah.
Um, so match day revenues are up, the bars open, and that's
What
so
did you
important.
do to get that clear? Sorry to interrupt, but what did you do? Because that's a massive thing for me, being a fan. What did you do to get that 250, or what have you done to, encourage people to come and then keep them here when they have arrived?
I think if you live, there's a bit of a phrase: if you live in Nantwich, you stay in Nantwich, you marry a girl from Nantwich. It's a very close community. So yeah, so most of our um, obviously we've got the squad of players that they bring their families. There was there wasn't many Solihull Moors supporters. There was probably just a handful, really. So it was
Yeah.
predominantly our own supporters, really, and they come from. I think a lot of it comes from our teams.
Hmm. Yeah.
I mentioned that we've got teams in every age group,
Yeah.
250 female footballers, but across the club we have over 1,000 players at the football club, and 74 teams across that. So we, as a club, any player that plays for Nantwich Town and pays their subscriptions and their membership, they get free access to our home
Yeah.
games, and of course what they do is they bring the mom, the dad, they bring the brother, the sister, and they bring their auntie and uncle, and they have a pint in the bar. And so commercially, it's working really well for us, John. We've got a good supporter base, and we've got a nice stadium as well, John. It was built 17, 18 years ago, and it was one of those original football foundation facilities. So we've got a nice stand, we've got a lovely stadium pitch, so people can plan. We know that the game's going to be on. I think we've called off one female game in 2 years, and that was with the recent bad weather. And it wasn't really that the pitch was unplayable; it was more to do with the roads and the infrastructure
Yeah.
around being dangerous, and
Yeah.
the consideration of, like, because it was the amber warnings and people saying, "Look, don't drive." So we could have played the game if we could have helicoptered people into the pitch. We could have played the game, but yeah. So I think from a team perspective, we're second in the league. I think we've got 5 games in hand of the team above us. So um, we've got a good chance, John. We've got a good chance of promotion, automatic promotion, but it'll still have to be assessed and validated, if you like, by, because you've got to make sure that if you go up that level, you've got the facilities to support it. But we have, our men's team is playing at a decent level of men's football. So our
Mhm.
facilities, to be honest, our facilities are better than a lot of sides that I've seen tier 3. So our players and our coaches are very, very fortunate to have those facilities. Our board invested £300,000, over £300,000 in our 3G facility 2 years ago. So we've got state of the art pitch and facilities, and so it helps with the planning of fixtures, John, because we
Yeah.
we know that we're going to play. Yeah, if you
Yeah.
get bad weather on a grass pitch, you know you don't really have that continuity, do you? There's so many games cancelled, isn't there, over the bad weather. So we benefit from that, really. So yeah.
Yeah. No, it's great to see. I just talk about the fan base. I think one other thing that would attract that is the work that you do in the community. And I just recently saw on your Twitter page, Dabbers in the Community Scheme. Do you want to just talk to us a little bit about that? Because I've read through it, and it looks great in what I've read. But yeah, I think it was only released. Was it last week that you mentioned that it was mentioned on the Twitter? But I'm sure it
Last
took a little while to develop.
last week, really, that we announced it, but we're working on it behind the scenes for a good 4 or 5 months or so, really, in terms of what we. So obviously, we're a community-based club. The FA the FA have their own assessment tool, John, which basically values the work that a club provides to its community. And
Yeah.
we've got an outstanding assessment which basically said we give 4.2 million a year of value to our community. So we've really got some really strong foundations: 1,000 players, 70 odd teams, 250 female footballers, 70 pan disability footballers. So we do, do coaching in schools. We're just setting up an academy for people to be able to do 2 years at college, learn, have a qualification that will allow them to go to university, but also play football at the same time with us. So we do a lot in the community as a football club. So, in order to keep up with that and keep up with the demand in players, and we've got to enhance our facilities. So, when the stadium was built, it wasn't really built for 250 female footballers and 70 pan disability footballers. So we've got to create more funds as a club to have another clubhouse. We want a little community hub that we want to build, that we can have maybe more changing rooms, more toilet facilities, and maybe like an education room as well. We've got 2 3G pitches at the club. One is the stadium pitch, which was done 2 years ago, but the other one was done 17 years ago. So the carpet now has reached its kind of its point of no return, really. So we've got to invest in that. So there's some infrastructure that we need to invest in, but we've decided that the best way to do that is really to kind of raise money in the community, and using those 70 teams to raise money. We want to make sure it's fun and engaging. So be that, the last week or so, I've had people say to me, I want to do the London Marathon. I want to do a half marathon. I want to run around Chester dressed as a chicken. I've had people wanting to do skydives. I've had people that want to do charity golf days. So a whole range of initiatives. If you think about a football club, it's the board who are volunteers themselves in the main, the senior management of the club, everyone, the supporters, the parents, all coming together to create a whole range of activities that will raise the money that will, one, invest in our facilities, but secondly, will then put back into the community. So some of the pledges that we've said, we'll make sure that we'll give at least 10 free spaces to people that can't afford to pay for football. So, which I think is a really, really positive thing. There's a lot of vulnerable people out there at the moment, and a lot of financial hardship, isn't there? And we don't want people to be able to play football because they can't afford it. So we'll put 10 spaces up for disadvantaged children. We'll provide 20 spaces for disability season tickets for disability footballers. We'll give access to our facilities during the day for any small businesses. So we're encouraging personal trainers, startup businesses to kind of use the facilities. We'll have a Friday morning coffee morning with over 65s, and we're going to launch an inter-schools football competition as well. So we're going to try and get all the local schools together. So we're doing a lot to try and we're going to raise money in, but we're going to spend that on our facilities, but also back into the community as well. And that's what, if you look at some of the big clubs, their foundation models, that's basically what they're trying to achieve. They're trying to raise more money, invest in their facilities, but also put money back into the community. And that's what we're trying to do, John. And really kind of, it's going to be a big task. We've got a lot of money to raise, but we've got a lot of really good people at the football club who already give a lot of their time and effort. So we're looking for more people to do that and support us. So if you fancy a skydive, John, with Nantwich Town hat, bobble hat, and swimming trunks or something like that, we can arrange
I
that.
happily support it and promote it. I don't think I can jump out of an airplane. I'm not even any good on roller coasters, let alone jumping out of an airplane. But I think it's great, and what you've just described there just sounds so easy. If you've got a load of people in the room and said, okay, what do we need to do to really raise awareness, or what can we do? What you just done there is just nail everything that everyone would probably say, but that's probably where the conversation would kind of end. It would probably take another year or two for people to start doing one or two things, and I appreciate some players at work, some players are, some coaches haven't got time, some board members might not have time, but it looks like what you've done is you've backed it up and you've actually gone out and made time. And when you've got so many people around the club, if everyone just does a little bit, it all adds up, doesn't it? And
Yeah, I think
great
so.
to see.
And I think we'd love a benefactor to come along and go, here you go, guys. Here's a million quid. Go and spend it on your facilities. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, the cost of running a football club, they're going up and up. The cost of lighting, the cost of heating, everything's going up and up. And so, the ability to invest in your facilities is so important, and that infrastructure. And we just need to make sure that we generate another stream of income for the club. But we do that in a way that builds team building, builds spirit, builds engagement with our community. One of the teams has said they'll go and do litter picking, and John, there's a road from the football club into the town, and it's in between a school and the club, and there's just a mountain of pop crisps and every day. So, one of our teams has said, we'll do that. We'll try and keep the place tidy. And it's those little small things that you can do as a football club. We've got a big volunteer workforce. We think we've got the largest volunteer workforce in the whole of South Cheshire. So volunteering's at the heart of any community football club. It's not about, most of our volunteers, they've got jobs, and they do this at weekends and one evening a week to support us. So, we just need to really capitalise on that spirit, really, that's there, and make sure that we take pride in the facilities and reinvest in it, as well as investing in the environment as well, in the local community. And football clubs are in a prime position, aren't they, to be at the heart of their community. I think I think we were formed in 1874, I think, something like that. So we're one of the oldest clubs in Cheshire, and the Northwest. So, there aren't that many institutions that have been around that long, are there, John? That's the key thing. So, and we are a pillar, and we have to support that. So, we're all just passing through, aren't we? And we have to make sure that facilities are there for future generations, really. So,
Yeah. No, that's great to hear, and I'm really looking forward to keeping an eye on what NANTWICH do over the summer, and hopefully they'll get promoted this year, because it's someone that I've had my eye on for a little while. So to obviously meet yourself, who's linked with it as heavily as you are, no, it's great to see what they're doing. There are other teams in the Cheshire area as well, and what strikes me the most is like the way that they're set up. From what you've described already, you kind of hinted it a little bit around AFC Crew and Macclesfield. So do you just want to kind of touch on the way that let's talk about Crew first. Am I right in believing that's the club that's fan owned?
yeah, it's a fan owned. So you pay a membership. They've got a global membership, so you can pay. I think it's something over 20 quid a month to be a member of the football club. It's a fairly new club. I think it's about 3 years old, really, male and female. And so they're generating revenues different than most traditional football clubs, really. They VO all their games, and their members watch the games around the world. And they're in our league. They've been in our league for the last couple of years. They managed to get girls from all around the country play for them on a Sunday, they recruit from universities, and it's a very interesting model, really. And at that level, they're paying players. I can't tell you how much they're paying players, but they're paying more than I know most girls are being paid at tier 3 as well. So, but the revenue, it reinforces the value of revenues, doesn't it, in football? And people criticise certain teams and clubs, but if you're generating the revenues, it's up to you to spend that. One of the things they have done, they basically said, and a bit like the Lewis model, they basically said all the revenue you generate, it goes 50% female, 50% male. So actually, on balance, I really encourage that, because I think more money going into the female game is just going to bolster that growth in the game and the interest in the game, isn't it, really? So I think for far too long, football clubs have kind of not reinvested all the money that they generate into female side of the ones that the clubs that have been successful at the very top end of football, the Man U's, the Chelsea's, the Man Cities, are investing significantly in their women's football, aren't they? So so we've got AFC Crew there. We beat them on Sunday 3-2. That was a really important game for us because they finished second last year, so we were third. The team that finished first last year was Macclesfield FC that I mentioned, and that's the club owned by Robbie Savage and his business partner. And they took over the old Macclesfield Town. Do you remember that? The club that went out of business a few years ago, and so they've done marvelously to get that club back on track and an upward trajectory. And then the female side of things, they've launched an academy and they've recruited from America. So you basically play Macclesfield FC. You play a team of Americans in Cheshire, basically. So playing soccer ball. So it's like so very interesting model. So
is there a university around there? Then why are all the American students going to Macclesfield area? Then is it like
there's a university campus that they based at, I think, which is up in somewhere in Preston, I think it is. But actually, they train and play at Macclesfield, use their facilities, but they're then all doing master's degrees at the university. So, look, having been exposed to the American university system, John, there's thousands and thousands of female footballers out there. In every university, you've got a squad of 25 players. And a lot of the ladies want to continue to play post graduation, and that's what Macclesfield are doing. They're tapping into that demand for Americans to come to Europe, and continue to play professionally or semi-professionally. So I don't know what the numbers are, but there must be more American footballers now in Europe. Than 10 years ago. So the reverse is happening. So there's a lot more, and I think it's the rise of the Women's Super League as well. It's very attractive, and the Americans see that, and they want to come over, and they want to. There was a big push, wasn't there, 10 years ago, with UK footballers going over to America. That's still there, but it's not as prolific because there now is progression opportunities within professional football clubs. But there's still a lot of Americans that want to play in the UK and are coming over, and so they're getting enhanced degrees, they're getting master's degrees, they're studying, and they're playing football. They're playing football during the week and also at the weekend as well. So they've got the college program and the it's a very interesting model, John. Rosie played for a team in Spain called FC Malaga for a year, and that was basically Rosie was in a team. There was an Irish girl, Rosie, a girl from Sweden, and then the rest were all Americans. So and they came over. They basically recruited a team across to play in the third tier of Spanish football. So yeah.
Interesting. No, it's great to hear, because that is just like completely, in that one area, 3 completely different models, isn't it? And like if you take that into like the Black Country where I live, they're all very same. Loughborough is spoken about. I mean, that's way out the way, Loughborough, but that's completely different. That's like a university kind of thing. And yes, you've got your academies, but generally there's so many teams right close to where I live. That's all the same kind of structure. Is just a case of who's got the most money, I guess, or whatever. So yes, so to hear 3 different clubs there in that space, all with a different model, it's really eye-opening, isn't it? We mentioned Macclesfield and Crewe. Is there any other team that you're looking out for as a NANTWICH?
Locally, Crewe, Alexander, obviously a well-established female football club, and in fairness, we've recruited well from players that have previously played for Crewe or been in their youth sides and their development squads. So I would say that 60% of our squad, our first team squad, has been at Crewe or played for Crewe at some point in their journey. So Crewe's been well established for many years. It used to be an FA Centre of Excellence. It lost that status. about 12 years ago, but then regained. I think they call them RTCs now, don't they? So
Yeah.
it's now a regional talent centre. So some of our best girls at Nantwich we recommend to Crewe, and so they're now in the FA talent pathway as a result of that, and we actively encourage our girls to go into that environment. So yeah. So
Excellent.
Crewe, and then Stoke's not far away. Stoke's 15 minutes away from us, John, as well. So obviously, third tier of women's football, and making lots of investments. We had a player that played for us last year, a lovely girl called Phoebe Lloyd, who's now in and around Stoke's first team. So so we've got good associations and links with both Crewe and with Stoke as well. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's great to see. And Stoke are invested heavily, aren't they? I know they did last year, and it looks like they've built on what they've started last year, this year as well. So, yeah, fantastic to see. Yeah, look, thank you very much for joining me, Richard. I really do appreciate it, and I'm sure I'll continue this chat off screen when I see you next. But no, I really appreciate you coming on, and maybe you can come on, during the summer and let us know how Nantwich are getting on again, because it's going to be great to hear all the success stories that I hope comes. Anyone else you want to shout out regarding Nantwich before I close?
No, just really just to thank all of the volunteers that we've got at the football club, the employees of the club, Lyndon Wayne, who's our football development officer, Will Swindells, who's our female development officer. So really, just big thank you to them for their support, but the volunteers really of the club. So they all know who they are. They've all been handpicked in the main, and they do a fantastic job. And we just onwards and upwards for us as a football club, really. So if anyone wants to join our football club, then please drop me a line, and we'll see if we can get you into one of our teams, or if not, just play recreationally. So
Brilliant. Look, thank you very much, Richard, and I will see you again soon.
thanks very much, John. Take care.
Thank you, Richard Embley, for such an insightful interview or conversation. I hate using the word interview because it's more of a conversation, but what I love about doing these interviews or conversations, and what I love about speaking to people, is that they can teach me things as well, and knowing that kind of setup is very valuable bits of information. And what I find really interesting more than anything is that he's probably come up with that knowledge through, yes, a bit of trial and error, of course, but having the right people around him. But more importantly, the reason why he's got the right people around him is because of the experience that he's got from watching his daughter develop over the years. So he's got 20 years of experience there that he's brought in to Nantwich. And he's the first to say that he wouldn't be able to do it by himself. But it's not about doing it yourself. It's about having the right people around you and building that culture, those personalities, which is what you mentioned as well. The first thing that he done was get the right people in and get the right kind of personalities. And I think that's a massive thing to do. So I'm really glad that he really highlighted that. So yeah, Nantwich obviously towards the top of the league. I'm definitely going to be looking out for those. Crewe and Macclesfield, the stuff that's going on there, and no idea. So yeah, it was really informative, and I think just for me now, I'm really going to be looking at that tier 6, tier 5 in that area, just to see how it develops. Because usually, as one team gets better, it can let players move on, and it makes the whole area get better. I also think it was good about how he involved the community. That's just something that just come back into my head. I think that's such a nice way of doing things, that where you can work with the community, work back and forwards. And there's so many people at that club who seems to want to get involved. And he talks about volunteers, but also the players. With that amount of players and that amount of teams, you've got an army behind you. So it's that shows up on the attendance as well, of course. So it's something that I've been pushing for a number of years as well, for clubs to do that. If you can really get on board with your girl sections and get the volunteers, because parents are great volunteers as well. Automatically, not only does your attendance lift for your first team, but you've got an army of people there that's able to help the community. And then if the community can see that, then that'll bring a bit of interest into the club as well, won't it? So really opens up a lot more conversations, and I spoke to Richard for another good 45 minutes after we press the stop button there as well, and I'll see him on Sunday at my local team as well. So yeah, looking forward to catching up with him again, and hopefully people can watch this video and enjoy learning about the Cheshire area.